Alors, bonjour, je suis Deon D'Souza, je suis indien et je viens d'une ville qui s'appelle Bangalore, en Inde. Et du coup, actuellement, je suis à Lille maintenant, je fais ma première année de marketing. Je parle français et je peux parler presque facilement. C'est pas difficile pour moi maintenant pour m'exprimer dans des situations dans des situations quotidiennes surtout. Il y a quelques fois que je fais des erreurs, mais je pense que français maintenant c'est dans mon cerveau, donc je peux parler et je vais te montrer la façon que j'ai appris pour mieux apprendre une langue. Et du coup voilà. Okay, I hope that was an appropriate enough demonstration of me using the language French, and I basically wanted to sort of make a video on how I learned French and how that's going. I'm not yet fluent or native level, but I think I can basically speak pretty much in most situations. And well, there's some things that I did to make the journey quite easy, and I'll probably also provide you tips if you are specifically an Indian student on how to better improve your French learning. So let's start. Again, before I start, I want to outline my unfair advantages that I've had, and I think it's important to address that and be more authentic. I was exposed to the French language since I was very young. First time I got exposed to it was when I was in 9th grade. I took CBSE, and basically I saw this video of Camille Rao. I'm just gonna put it up right here.
Essential. La langue française est sensuelle. No matter what we do or say. Non mais j'ai rien à me mettre.
Yeah, I saw that video and I was like completely fascinated as a young 14-year-old. And then I decided that I really wanted to sort of focus on learning French. And well, I took it more seriously than other students when I was 14, 15. So that's 9th standard and 10th standard. Did my CBSE exam and then never took French again. So I had no real formal learning on how to do it other than, the few CBSE exams that I had to learn for, which is quite basic. And I think most people go through it without ever learning it. So how did I learn French? How would I basically tell you to learn French? Now, I think the best way to start is actually to learn not by learning intellectually, because your brain really listens, and I think sounds are almost downloaded into your subconscious without you putting too much intention and effort towards it. Language learning, and even given the fact that if you're from India, you probably speak several languages already, and I don't think you consciously put effort to learn any of this. So this will be so much easier for you because you already have the neural pathways to sort of use many languages, right? One of the things is to start by listening to music in French. Now, I would say this would be my number one sort of like sauce in this. Listen to music, because your ears and your brain needs to get familiar with the sounds of the language before you actually say anything. You don't need, if you're going to start learning, start with that. Start by listening and not paying attention to it. Just listen to the sounds. See how the sounds just sort of like get into your brain. What I would recommend you to do is to pick a song and pick a French song, learn the lyrics, try to sing the songs. Yeah, I like singing, so that's something that I would probably do, and I have done that. That's how I've basically picked it up. Use these songs as a conduit for actually learning the language accidentally. And if you realize that when you sing songs, accent sort of disappears, and I'll tell you why this is important very soon. When you learn the song, take the lyrics, translate them, and then learn what the song means. So once you got the song in your head, like in your memory, then figure out what it actually is trying to say. Not like, bear with not understanding things in the beginning. So what this does is it's an inverse thing. Usually you learn from your native language, then you translate it to French. But what I'm asking you to do is the exact inverse. Learn the French first, learn the song, and then figure out what it means. This automatically builds a sense of association in your brain, and that would be the first sort of like path that you should take. And now for the second thing that I would tell you, which is massively important, and especially if you're Indian, it's the accent. Accent is king in any language. Now, if someone spoke to you in your native language, but they had a very thick accent, you would automatically still feel the need to sort of exclude them in some sense. You know, they are not your people. They're using your language, but don't feel like home. You know what I'm talking about? Accent, I would say, is more important than actually knowing the language in itself. Because if you make a fairly good imitation with the few basic words that you have in your target language, which right now is French, you'd still be so much more highly understood, much more highly appreciated. I think people would see you as one of their own and teach you things. You know what I'm saying? So, accent is probably the most important thing. This is why learning a song helps. Even though you don't know how to sing, if you know how to sing even better, it gives you the sounds of the language. Just imitate. Now, this is what I would do. This is what I've done. I've just played YouTube videos in the background. I would not understand what they're saying. And I would just imitate what they're saying like a baby, because that's how babies learn. Babies make the entire vocal syllable sort of range. They utter every syllable until it refines into their native language. It's the same thing with French. Learn the sounds of the language and let imitate the video. You know, even if you don't understand, again, don't even try to understand. Be okay with not understanding anything in the beginning and just imitate the sounds, because this will go a long way for you. Things will automatically come through even though you did not know that you learned them. Next thing that you should do after you've sort of familiarized with yourself with a couple of songs or a couple of things that you've memorized, the imitations, start learning the basics. The basics are, any language is used to basically do this one thing: to request that you need something and to give something. To give and to get are the fundamental building blocks of any language, regardless. That's why we use language. So learn the basic verbs: to have, to be, to give, to want, to think, to believe, to look for, you know, just the basic sort of vocabulary that you would need. And there are plenty of things online. This is how you structure it. Find those YouTube videos that say like learn 100 phrases in French, and then just come on, like learn them, commit them to memory, and then just use them. You know, now start using the language a little bit and use it to yourself imaginarily. You know, just like look and be like, if you're going to go get water, be like, oui, je voudrais de l'eau, you know, je voudrais y aller. Just tell yourself things, you know, think this is, and then this is where you get into like the sauce of the thing. Create a brain that speaks French. You know, this is where you give yourself instructions in French. And that's how you just sort of like develop this whole structure where now you can use the language to yourself. And now I'm going to drop the bomb resource, the resource that I use, that like basically is the resource I would recommend to anyone who asks me, hey Dion, how did you learn French? Michel Thomas. Now, Michel Thomas was a World War II veterinarian who spoke several languages. Then he became famous for teaching celebrities and people of high worth and net worth or whatever that is to speak the language really quickly. And there was a very expensive program back in the 1980s, the 90s and the early 2000s. Unfortunately, he has passed away, but his method still remains. It was the resource that I used, and you can find it online on YouTube, and you can find it on other ways in the internet. Finally, there's another exercise that I used to do that I found on YouTube, which is, I'm gonna shout out his thing here, yeah. And it was to sort of remember a story in your own life, say it in your native language, and then translate it into French and try to memorize that. And then take your camera, your phone, your laptop, and record yourself saying this story and add emotion. Now, this would be the pro tip here again. Add emotion to the language that you're speaking, because if it's just used as a language that you're using and not applying the fundamental quality of language, which is emotion. Again, language is used to transmit emotions as well. you would actually be starting to sort of live the language. Now, this is another very esoteric trip. Live the language in some sense, and you'd be able to communicate so much more fluently. Keep doing this, and at this point you might be able to speak on your own. So try telling your stories to the camera, speak in French, and then as soon as you don't know how to say something, stop right there, make note of what you wanted to say, either in English or in your native language, write it down, and then continue with your story, as much French as you can. Go through the discomfort of not knowing what to say, of not understanding, of not being able to explain yourself. Go through the discomfort, because there you'll find out the gaps that you need to fill in this learning, essentially. So another thing that I did was I used ChatGPT. Like, I belted ChatGPT and I maxed out the capacities and ways that you can use ChatGPT to learn a language. I'll give you some common prompts that I used. ChatGPT, give me 100 phrases that are commonly used in French and everyday conversations. Give me informal phrases. Give me expressions. Write a story. Like, I used to sort of max out this kind of thing, and each time that it gave me an answer, I used to learn how to say it out loud, and then I automatically got what it was telling, because you can ask it for translations, and then you just have these basic glues. All you need in a language are the basic glues up to talk about something, and then basically the vocabulary is generally internationalized these days. You can say something in English and you'd be generally understood. Now, this is probably like the holy grail of the tips, and this is probably the holy grail of the tips, and it'll also be the hardest for you to probably execute, which is to make a relationship with someone in French. I don't mean a romantic relationship. I mean, like, make a relationship with someone who speaks the language. And for that, I would tell you to use the app HelloTalk. It's an app where you can actually meet native speakers and build like this very serious relationship where you speak in French and they speak in English to you. That is optimally how it should work. And reason why this would work is that if you both start speaking English, it wouldn't work. So ask them to speak in English and you make your effort to speak in French. I believe personally that only when you make a real human relationship with someone that speaks French is when the language will automatically transfer within you without you even trying. So this would be my basic way of how I'd recommend someone to start learning it, how they can sort the roadmap on which that they should take. To summarize, learn a song, memorize a song, then learn the translation of the song. Keep doing this with videos, imitate like a baby, don't even try to understand, just imitate the sounds. And French has like very different sounds, that I think as an Indian speaker you could make quite easily. For example, étranger, the étranger, like those sounds are not too far off from our basic native sounds. But when you master these sounds like r, a, e, I used to do this. I used to literally go like and I used to sound insane. I do sound like an idiot, but that's actually what took my French to a level that I have today. So yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching and good luck.